First and foremost, thank you for having this interview with me. For those who don't know, could you please introduce who you are?
Yep. So my name is Jarvarus Gresham. I'm a commercial litigation associate at a law firm called Baker and Hostetler. The firm is headquartered in Cleveland, but we have about 110 lawyers in Atlanta. And I'm on the commercial litigation team where I do, commercial litigation type matters, about 40-50% sports related litigation where we represent professional sports teams. And also I do some real estate disputes, some healthcare related litigation, and some white collar criminal defense and internal investigations.
Okay. And for someone who wouldn't understand what a litigator is, what exactly do they do? So
a litigator is a lawyer who helps clients through the court systems. I'm a civil litigator, so that means there's generally no criminal aspects of what we do. But when someone is sued or someone files a lawsuit against somebody, you have the plaintiff, they're the person actually suing the other person. A litigator, will represent that plaintiff. And then on the other side, the person who is being sued, the defendant, there will be a litigator who represents them. And litigation pretty much just, it sums up or defines the process of moving through the court system after a lawsuit has been filed.
Okay, and how long have you practiced law?
So I've been practicing law for a little over 5 years now. I graduated from law school in 2019 and started practicing here at Baker Hostetler in September of 2019.
So what was the turning point in your life that made you decide, I want to be a lawyer?
Yeah, so I wanted to be a lawyer from, for a very long time, starting, I think, back when I was, maybe 7 or 8 years old. I got past that, firefighter and astronaut stage and wanted to become a lawyer. The one event that really, cemented me wanting to become a lawyer was when I was, in elementary school, and I was out sick, and I have an older brother. My mother had to go to juvenile court with him because he had gotten into some trouble at school. So, of course, me being out sick, I went with them to the juvenile court hearing, and I remember I didn't feel like my brother was being treated fairly. I felt like, whoever it was, maybe it was the prosecutor and the police officer, treated him unfairly. And I remember my mother not knowing what was okay, not knowing whether it was okay, for them to speak to my brother in that way, or to not know what the next step was in the process, because of course, she was not a lawyer. She had no clue how the process was supposed to go. So I remember that day ending with my big brother being, thrown to the ground and being handcuffed and taken to juvenile. And I remember my mother just kind of being speechless and not knowing what to say. So from that point on, I've always wanted to be an advocate for people, because I remember standing in that courtroom just wanting to say that's not right, but like my mother not knowing what was not right, or whether or not, they were justified in what they were doing.
Okay, and what was your major in undergraduate school, and how much has it contributed to your lifestyle? So
I was a criminology major in undergrad, and I minored in African American studies. While I was in undergrad at the University of Florida, I wanted to be a prosecutor. I wanted to be a juvenile prosecutor, and that kind of goes back to the reason I wanted to become a lawyer in the first place. But being in juvenile court and seeing how my brother was treated. In terms of being a prosecutor, being a criminology major would have helped quite a bit. But just as a civil litigator now, the criminology aspect doesn't really come into play that much. But I do take on some pro bono cases where I can utilize and think back and pull from some of the actual things I learned and lessons from being a criminology major.
What type of classes would you recommend to a student who would, want to go into your field? This is for high school and college students who are in undergraduate.
So I think, if you want to, pursue a career in law, you can take just about anything in undergrad. I think it's always good to have a foundation of knowledge in some area. So, a lot of people who want to go to law school, they major in political science or criminology, but you don't necessarily have to. I've heard, that, a lot of engineers, people who major in, engineering and get engineering degrees in undergrad, they do pretty well in law school, given the analytical skills that they developed, during their undergraduate careers. So, you can major in anything, and the advice I would give somebody is would be to major in something that you're passionate about, and just make sure you're involved in pre-law related activities. So if there's a pre-law society or anything like that, I would get involved in that, because that way you'll stay abreast and kind of up to date on what's going on with law school admissions and things like that.
Okay, and if someone were to come to Baker Hostetler and become a civil litigator, how much could they really see themselves making during their first year?
So I think that so Baker Hostetler is considered a big law firm, and the salaries for big law firms, they're pretty consistent across the board. And I think the starting salary at Baker Hostetler is $215,000 or $225,000. I may be mistaken because it's been a while since I was a first year associate, but I think it's within that range, and that range is consistent with the national range of big law first year associates.
Okay, and for the last thing, what's one piece of advice you would give to someone who's in high school or who's in college that would like to be a lawyer themselves?
Yeah, I think if you're in high school and you haven't taken the SAT yet, definitely take it serious. Prepare for it. Study as hard as you can. I sometimes recommend people to take a course just to make sure you do as well as you can on the SAT, because that allows you to apply to and get accepted into a greater number of schools depending on where you're interested in going. And I would give the same advice to a law student, to someone in undergrad who's thinking about law school. Really take the LSAT serious. Practice in terms of taking the LSAT. And of course, for high school students or undergrad students, your grades are going to be important. And if you're preparing to go to law school, you will have to do a lot of reading. So just get used to it. One of my mentors told me when I was studying for the LSAT to just read the newspaper every day. You may or may not be interested in every single story that's in the newspaper, but it'll help you with reading some of those LSAT and SAT essays in terms of reading comprehension, and really pulling out the main points, the main topics, and what you're supposed to be getting from those articles.
All right, well, thank you for taking the time out of your day to have this interview, and this was great.
Yep, thanks for having me.
All right.